New documents reveal how the WHO botched their coronavirus response. Plus, you thought American politics was bad? Wait till you hear about the purges in China. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. It's almost flu season, which means many countries are once again going into lockdown over the coronavirus. Cases in the US are breaking global records, and experts say it will only get worse. 1.1 million people have died from the coronavirus, and yet there is still no transparent, independent investigation into the source of the virus. That's according to the New York Times. They've uncovered internal World Health Organization documents that make the WHO look pretty bad. Not that they needed any help. Internal documents and interviews with more than 50 public health officials, scientists, and diplomats provide an inside look at how a disempowered World Health Organization, eager to win access and cooperation from China, has struggled to achieve either. That's the understatement of the year, and in 2020, that's saying something. The documents say WHO leadership quietly negotiated terms with China that sidelined its own experts. They would not question China's initial response or even visit the live animal market in the city of Wuhan where the outbreak seemed to have originated. And that's a big deal, because if we can solve the mystery of the origin of the virus, that could help scientists prevent another pandemic and develop vaccines and treatments for this one. At the same time, the health organization pushed misleading and contradictory information about the risk of spread from symptomless carriers. Its experts were slow to accept the virus could be airborne. Top health officials encouraged travel as usual, advice that was based on politics and economics, not science. It's really hard to listen to the scientists when the scientists are focused on the politics. The vice president of corporate communications for Huawei has suddenly died. He was an Irish businessman named Joe Kelly. No details were given as to what caused the 55-year-old's death, though Chinese social media has plenty of ideas. Some Chinese internet users noted how Kelly's death reminded them of English businessman Neil Haywood, who was murdered with poison. Haywood was killed by the wife of a powerful communist official, Bo Xilai, because he knew too much. Joe Kelly was in charge of spinning Huawei's global image, and it hasn't exactly been a great image lately. So some netizens said maybe he knew about too many skeletons in the closet. And since no cause of death has been given, it's easy to jump to conspiracy theories. But maybe it was just an accident. Like the time the head of a Chinese conglomerate died after falling from a wall. A totally normal thing that sometimes happens to successful people. Things are definitely being shaken up inside China right now. On my previous episode, I talked about the recent major meeting of the Communist Party, the 5th plenum of the 19th Central Committee. And General Secretary Si Ťin-pching is making some changes. In the lead up to the meeting, he purged a bunch of communist officials. And following the meeting, 2 more senior communist officials got sacked. Both of them had connections to China's financial industry, and it wasn't just them. At least 11 executives and officials who worked in finance roles had been placed under investigation. And it's not a coincidence that a big part of the meeting was about reforming China's financial sector. But Xi Jinping's purges aren't just a response to the most recent meeting. He's already preparing himself for the 20th National People's Congress in 2022. That's when the next batch of party leaders will be decided. Xi is starting to change the senior officials for the upcoming 20th National Congress. Xi will promote more officials who are loyal to him in the coming months. Sometimes you just gotta purge the officials who don't make you look and feel your best. The Quad, an alliance of Australia, India, Japan, and the US, designed to counter the threat from China. This week, the Quad began war games in the Indian Ocean. These are called the Malabar exercises. They began in 1992, but were just a bilateral exercise between the United States and India. Japan joined in 2017. This year is the first time Australia has joined in. Australians may be a bunch of criminals, but they're the kind of criminals you want on your side. Plus, they do a great barbecue. Yeah, that's me in Australia eating a barbecued possum. That was a fun episode. And I suspect Australia's involvement in the war games has something to do with the Chinese Communist Party threatening multi-billion-dollar trade bans on Australia, which I talked about in a recent episode. Australia has responded by telling China to play by the rules. Yeah, good luck with that. China could impose trade bans on Australian wine, lobster, sugar, coal, timber, wool, barley, and copper. Chinese officials deny this, but they also recently stranded 20 tons of Australian lobsters at a Chinese airport. That's tragic. What if the lobsters die while sitting on the tarmac? It would be almost as bad as being boiled alive. Anyway, the bad blood between China and Australia began when Australia pushed the WHO to look into the origin of the coronavirus. And they managed to anger the Chinese regime while simultaneously getting the WHO to do absolutely nothing. And now, it's time for me to answer a question from one of you, a fan who supports China Uncensored on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Logan asks, the last Cold War got us to the moon and gave us great technology like GPS. Chris and crew, willing to make a guess what tech this new Cold War will give us? Oh boy, the silver lining to any war, new technology. And I have a feeling this US-China Cold War will give us marvels we've never dreamed of, especially if the Cold War turns hot, like nuclear hot. So what kind of new tech might we get from such a war? Perhaps something like the stick. It's a versatile tool that can be used in many ways in the wasteland. As a walking stick, opening up cans of soup you may stumble upon, or as a weapon to fight off the mutants. I'm looking forward to the day when I can own one myself. How about you? Okay, a close second to the stick would be quantum technology. It's the new space race. Maybe I should do an episode about that. Thanks for your question, Logan. If you'd like me to answer your question on the show, join what I call the China Uncensored 50-cent Army on Patreon. Join me in the fight against the Chinese Communist Party. For as little as the price of a cup of coffee, you can help us keep this show going. Go to patreon.com/China Uncensored to learn more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.